Now you're welcome along to the football show. Later on, we'll hear from Miguel Delaney. He was an OTBAM this morning. But first, Pat Nevin is with us. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing? Are you okay?
Very well, very well, very well. So Project Restart continues. The good news is on the Project Restart front regarding our conversations is at least May 25th is coming into view. So we can stop having them very, very soon. They met yesterday, all the various clubs and stakeholders, and the FA, having watched all the politicking that was going on, made it very clear that this league campaign must be finished on sporting merit. And by that, they mean we're not having a null and void scenario. So when it comes to relegation, top four and who finishes first, you can either play out the games or you can employ some kind of mathematical formula, points per game, weighted or otherwise. And it's up to you. Go away and figure it all out. So that, it would seem, means that we'll either have points per game or some kind of finish. The neutral venue thing is really blown up in a slightly surprising way. The government say it's non-negotiable. They can't have games all around the country at different venues and police and all those kind of demands. So neutral venue is a must. Various clubs not happy about this. Now, there is a financial aspect I appreciate whereby Etihad want the Etihad Stadium mentioned, but it certainly seems as if teams and managers are very insistent, especially the lower down you go the table on having home advantage. Mm-hmm. Were you a big home away type? Did you wake up in the morning of an away game and think, well, I'm not expected to win anyway, how could I possibly?
Yeah. Well, we'll get on to that question in a second. I need to get back to the concept of them saying they don't want neutral venues. Now, from day one, from before we even started talking about this in the Premier League, my thoughts are neutral venues, everyone gets together, keep the logistics simple. Don't let politicking get involved at all. Now, you kind of half expected this to happen with 2 or 3 of the teams down near the bottom because you kind of have to do that to try and save yourself. But I expected the Premier League to say, no, that's not the way it is. We're in weird times. We play where we're supposed to play. I can't believe this is actually happening. And I'm actually quite angry about it. The fact that these Premier League clubs are doing this. It's not time to do these sort of things. It's not time to try and get a little bit more here and a little bit more there and try and wiggle it about a bit in your form. That's not it. This is not what this is about. This is about finding our way, the simplest and most importantly, the safest way to finish it. And you bring up the point, and I think it's massively important because it's the most important point today in the football calendar where we're trying to go forward with this Project Restart. You can't start niggling at the sides of it. Don't do it. It's wrong to do it. So I'm kind of hoping the government stays stiff in this one. Really, really strong in this one. People are already turning around football and saying, no, you don't care, it's all about money. Some were able to argue, no, you have to try and get back to normality. See, when you try and do the little bits of politics on the side to help yourself, and it is purely financial, you begin to lose sympathy, and I don't think they can afford to do that. I think it's a misstep, and a big misstep. I'll go off my soapbox now. I'm really annoyed about it.
Yeah.
It seemed so obvious right from the start from me that this is the only way to do it. And if you do it the other ways and go around the clubs, the dangers are just accentuated so much. And why do that? I cannot get my head around why you would do that, other than purely selfish reasons for the home and away bias. And you're absolutely right. The home and away makes a difference, but it's not home and away. It's neutral. So though it's not completely fair, nothing's going to be completely fair as we go forward. And the idea of neutral venues would have been certainly the best way to go forward from that. It makes a difference. It does make a difference.
Yeah.
You asked the question, and it's a great question. What did I think, or what did players think? There's a number of things to take on board. I think, first of all, just the normal surroundings that you feel more comfortable in, that kind of helps. Psychological attitudes that teams travelling have, that helps as well. That shouldn't be a thing, but it is a thing with most people. Remember, it's only a big bit of grass. It's roughly the same wherever you go. But it's easy to say that, but you just have a look at all the results over the years and it doesn't hold out like that. But so there's a psychological advantage. There is no doubt there's a refereeing advantage as well. If you've got to put a little bit of pressure on the referee, the assistants and all that sort of things, sometimes little decisions, or quite a lot of them sometimes, will be made against you. It just happened. It happened quite regularly. And yes, all Liverpool fans, put your fingers in your ear now, because that was the worst place for it. Anfield, it was a nightmare. You couldn't get anything there. But that was just because their fans were great at putting the pressure on. People always say that as a negative, and it really annoys people. It's actually a positive. It means your fans are doing your job right. So that was absolutely the case as well. So all those things put in together, and I would ignore them all and walk out thinking it's just a bit of grass. But sadly, I didn't think everyone else felt the same way. And what was very clear is that coaches and managers never felt the same way, because they always changed their tactics and were slightly more negative.
That's the amazing thing, isn't it? That coaches would so readily change tactics.
And always, and not sometimes, almost always. I would say 80, 90% of the time, the coaches will change. Now, it might not be a massive adaptation. It might not be going 5-4-1. It might not be going ultra defensive. But you'll notice that the wee tricky winger's not playing away from home. It's a runner. It's like you can get somebody else. You're not playing me, you play Coban, if you know what I mean. You're looking behind you.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you would do. Just things like that. I'm not saying that Coban wasn't a skillful player. I'm not saying that, but I'm attack-minded. But you know what I mean? You will get the stronger, more running players. And they often did that. And more physical players away from home. If you had two midfielders, one was a bit more defensive than the other, he's going to get quite often the nod away from home when he wouldn't have got it at home. Tiny little simple things like that. So you've not always massively changed it, but the mindset's just been flicked. And that's all you need to do. Change the mindset a little bit. And every player knows. Everyone knows that, hey, that guy who was our skillful player's on the bench today. All right, okay, this is what we're in for. We're in, for a, just a complete backs to the wall fight against whatever we possibly can, and if we can possibly break, we will. And that's before you walk out onto the pitch. So yeah, psychologically, totally different with the coaches.
I mentioned that potentially finances are a factor here, i.e. Etihad want their mentions, and that's part of their contract with the Premier League clubs. But that has never felt like the driving force. The driving force has been, we mentioned Christian Perslow a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about Villa's home record as opposed to their away record. It seemed when they were talking about their opposition to neutral venues, it was born more of a we want to get as many points as possible. But you rightly make the point there. We're not talking about home games and away games. They're only seeing the negative here. Equally, they don't have to go away the other 5 or 6 or 4 times, whatever, regardless of whatever the fixture list dictates. It is neutral all the way. And so nobody actually quite knows how they might fare at neutral grounds, which makes their intransience on this all the more silly and confusing. Bournemouth, Villa and Norwich will go down if they want to go down the mathematical route. So straight away, there's 3 clubs who just can't want this.
Yeah. And absolutely. But it's what happens. It's what happens. This is a tiny little microcosm of a complete madness that's happened in Scotland, which is much, much worse, right? And the politicking there is off the scale. It's just bizarre, absolutely mad, right? You look at it in England, it's kind of small scale in comparison. Not financially, it's bigger scale, but it's small scale. People are generally, or clubs have generally sort of done the right things and said the right things up until now. And I think this is a bit of a misstep. And, if they maybe step back on again, it'll be okay. But that's what happens. Politicking happens. You have to, from their point of view, not you have to, they feel as if they have to do whatever is best for their club. And they've kind of forgotten that initial attitude and reaction they had at the start, which was, no, we just got to do the best we can from wherever we are. But you're right, they've moved off it. They've moved off it a little bit. And it can't be for any of the other those reasons you're suggesting. Can't be. You're not suggesting, but you're mentioning them. It cannot be that, because you're right. It's not a home or away game. It will be in a neutral venue. There's not going to be a whole bunch of your fans there. That will make no difference as well. Everyone's in the same boat. Now, you can go into it and look at it intricately, which many football fans and many of you listening there will have done, and say, well, my team's got slightly harder games away from home than at home. Tough. It happens sometimes. It's a bit of a difference, but it's not a monster difference. If we're actually going to get this away at all, which I'm still underlying, A, don't do it if it's not safe, which we don't know yet, and B, most importantly, do it, and then if it becomes unsafe, stop doing it. Right. but you have to try and put it in place. You don't get it in place if everyone starts creating more problems. It just doesn't happen.
Okay. We touched on Alex Ferguson last week. Somebody tweeted in and they wanted to know who your favourite manager was, who got the best out of you.
Oh, that's two different things. No, it's not. Any manager, I like managers who were they were kind of modern for their time. They were open. They were basically left me alone. Trust me. I worked under Craig Brown when I was younger. Now, the best manager I ever worked under was Jock Stein, right? So I had a very short period with him, and he was genius, right? But it was very short, and it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
But I worked under Craig Brown, and before each game, he hardly have a word to say to me. You just go out and destroy. On you go. I kind of half the time didn't know if I was left, right, centre. Just go and attack them. That's good. And get back when you need to. Same happened when I first went to Chelsea, a guy called John Neal. And it was amazing. He used to say wild phrases to me, like, you know, I was like 19. Just a wee kid coming into this team, and he'd do the whole rant and rave about, you know, you're right back, you're left back, you're this, and do a whole 20 minutes, and then turn around and say, and if you give the ball to Pat, you'll win. I'm like 19 going, what, me? Just like, trust him. And nothing gives you now, he may not be a great manager. I think he was, but he was great for me because he utterly, completely, and totally trusted me what you were capable of doing. So you ask players, the question is very good because you want to see who's a great manager. I'm answering the way most players will answer. What was good for me? And what's good for me? And I just felt that, you know, in other times in my career, you were working on people who were much more structured and you had to do set things and the whole thing was structured. It didn't suit my, you know, my style, my personality, whatever. It didn't necessarily make them bad managers. The guy, Colin Harvey, I loved as a manager and a man, but it was a wee bit more structured than I'd have kind of preferred. But yeah, it doesn't make him a bad manager or a worse manager. He would have been great. Got a bit unlucky. And the manager at Tranmere, and I'm sure I told you before, that he'd go and do the tactics and talk about it and then walk out the room and we'd all say, right, okay, what are we doing now? Just ignore him. Wow. But we all liked him because he just put 11 guys together that are quite good and let us go on with it, even though we didn't do what he told them to do. And I've told you stories about him before, about leaving 4 and 5 up for a corner. You know, that madness. It turned out to be not as mad as I thought it was at the time. So, best manager, all for different reasons. I mean, it's funny because they're all popping into my mind now. And the funniest manager, a guy called Bobby Williams, who I played up with Kilmarnock. And it just really, really funny. And we were brought up within a mile of each other in the rough end of Glasgow. And one of the first phrases he ever said to me was he used to play for Command Rangers as well. Hard, centre forward, but hard wee guy. And he said, oh, you're a great player. It's great to have you on board. And I can't believe you're signed for us. That's fantastic. I said, what is it about your game? And I said, well, I just like creativity. And, I like, developing things. And I said, well, what would you like, Bobby? And he goes, I just like kicking people. I'm like, what? I was a centre forward. And every manager is different. It's the ones that suit you. That's what it's down to.
Yeah. We had Miguel Delaney on the show at the weekend. We're doing like a career retrospective with him. And he never had an agent in his whole career, which struck me as madness. I don't think Paul Scholes did either. I think Scholes went in and said, right, what am I worth? What are you giving me? Grant, done, quick. We'll look after you, son, that kind of a thing, which is very admirable in some respects, but also complete madness. Did you negotiate on behalf of yourself, or did you have an agent in there agitating viciously and aggressively on your behalf?
19 years as a professional, had an agent for one day.
I knew you were going to say something stupid like that.
Well, I never wanted an agent, right? Okay, I've got a slight help in the fact that I'd studied beforehand and I'd done economics, accounts and business studies and business management, right? So I had some background as well. Also had the attitude of, look, it's a job, pay me a certain amount. It's enough to get by and it's a bit more than most people get. And, if I'm really good, somebody will pay me a lot more. I'm going to chase every penny. It wasn't really that into the money in that way. So you can be like that. It's a wee bit easy to be like that. A, when you're a bit older, and B, when you've got a couple of quid. Except it can't always be like that when you're, really struggling on the edge and on the line. But it's players are not. So not chasing every penny, but love the concept, the idea of, look, If I'm that good, I'll get the rewards. Now, I might have got more had I got an agent and would have chased and pushed and all that sort of stuff. Possibly so. But so what, really? You're kind of making it up. The reason why I had an agent for a day is I was supposed to leave Chelsea and go to Paris Saint-Germain. And this agent had organised it. But not my agent, he'd organised it from the PSG side. Fine. Then I changed my mind at the last minute to go to Everton, and I thought, oh, poor guy. So I gave him 1 day's work. I said, wait, I'm going to go in. And what I did was I got him up to Everton at Goodison, and I said, right, I'm going to go and see the manager now and the chief executive. You sit here, and I'll be out in 1 minute. So I walked in and I said to the manager and the chief exec, what are you offering me? And they offered me X a week, X signing on fee, whatever, right? I walked back out and I said to the agent, I've got that, and that. Whatever you get on top of it, you can get 20% off. That's it. There's a deal. For a day's work, that's what you get.
Did he manage to get more?
He did. He got a little bit more, not a massive amount more. And he made a decent amount of money for his day. And he covered his costs. So I wasn't doing it to make him money or make me money. There was a moral duty for a guy who'd done a lot of work in making the previous thing happen. And then I dropped him the next day. Well, I told him I wasn't going to use him again. I was just doing it myself. So, but if you want to make every single penny out of it, and now people will tell you today, it's much harder, it's much more complicated, because as image rights, there's a whole bunch of other things that will come into play as well. And a lot of players aren't educated enough to do it. And I was scammed in my first contract. I was scammed, but I learned. So, I understand why players have agents. What I do find difficult is not the fact that, well done them getting lots of money. At the union, the PFA, we tried to do in-house agency. It's kind of complicated, but we managed to do it for a period. Basically, you charge lawyers' rates, which sounds like a lot. It's pennies in comparison to an agent, trust me. Absolute pennies, but that's what we try to do to help the players. But in the end, some players, A, aren't confident enough to do it, and B, aren't actually capable, to be brutally honest, of doing it themselves. So I never complain at the guys who do it. So yes, one day, although I now have an agent, only a literary agent. Okay.
PSG, Paris, that would have suited you down to the ground, no?
That's what I thought. I quite liked that. And then I realised that was the reason why I was going there, because Paris would have suited me. It wasn't a team. And spoiler alert, PSG weren't that good at the time. They weren't a great team at the time, but I quite liked the idea of going to live in Paris, which would have been brilliant. And I was there. I'd agreed. It was all going to happen. I was just going to go and visit. And then at the last minute, Everton came in, and I thought, and my girlfriend, who was soon to be my wife at the time, just said, why are you going to Paris? Is it the football? Is it because you love the game, or is it because you want to swan about the left bank with all the artists? She had me pegged. Yeah. So I had to do the right thing for, not the career, but, it's the right thing you do. You have to find out how good you can get, how high you can get. The Everton seemed the right thing, because Everton were a top team at the time.
They were a league-winning team, yeah.
Exactly. So I had to make that decision. But I'll tell you, I'm not saying it was hard, but it was painful, because, I'd be like, speak to you in perfect French now, and I'd been hanging about there. I'd have loved it. It wouldn't have been cool, but hey, what's for you won't go by you, as you say, but that would have been an absolute cracker. But once again, had I gone there, I think I probably would have needed the agent skills in that one, because my French is okay, I can just about get by, but it's not good enough to do those sort of things. But 5 years later, by the time I go to Turkey to sign for Galatasaray, I've not got an agent either, but I'm kind of happy to talk to them. Yeah. So the comfort of knowing yourself always helps.
I don't suspect you played angry very often, or collected slights and took them onto the pitch with you, did you?
3. 3. Well, very specific today, aren't I?
Yeah, very on point, yeah. I'll tell you why I don't. Are you watching, do you have Netflix?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Are you watching the Michael Jordan documentary?
I'm not done, but it could be one of the ones I could. Do you suggest I should?
Highly, highly recommended. Strongly recommended. So it's 10 episodes, 2 drop every week. You're lucky in that we're well into it now. So I think you've 7 or 8 of them lined up for you, waiting for you. I was watching the episode last night, and so there's an amazing thing about Jordan. And you know, basketball is a very expressive sport. You would think being zen and calm and allowing all the creativity to come forth might be the best way to play the game. Man, he's so full of anger and perceived slights. And I think we reached like the peak last night, where he's in a series against the Bullets. I'm not a basketball not at all, but this is great to relive the 90s through him. It's March 1993, and there's a player called LeBradford Smith, who's just a run-of-the-mill player. And LeBradford Smith, in the game against Chicago Bulls, has a fantastic game. He scores 37 points. MJ has an off game. He only scores 25. And at the end of the game, they're all shaking hands. They have to play each other the next night. Basketball, you know, the schedule is nuts. And LeBradford Smith just says, "Nice game, Mike." That's all. "Nice game, Mike," is what he says. This drives Jordan insane. This is like the most terrible insult. Like, he was goading me. He's in the dressing room afterwards. He was goading me. That son of a bitch. I'm going to kill him. And so the next night he says, "I am on LeBradford Smith. What's more, I'm going to score more in the first half than he scored in the whole game tonight." And he does. Jordan goes out angry, livid, scores 37 points in the first half. And this is like a reoccurring theme over the whole of his career. And then fast forward a couple of years, and it turns out LeBradford Smith says, "I actually never shook hands with Jordan even after the game." So a bunch of reporters go over to Jordan years later and say, "Did LeBradford Smith saying he never even said 'nice game, Mike' to you in the first place? Did you make that up?" And Jordan smiles and said, "Yeah, I made it up." So he willfully used paranoia to the point where he believed LeBradford Smith had said, "Nice game, Mike," and that this was a slight at him, and I'm going to effing destroy this as a bitch the next night. And I'm just like, whoa. And it's such an insight into how maybe the greatest basketball player ever used all of this anger and like the negative energy, really, to motivate himself at length. And he was a creative force as well. You would think negativity and creativity can't go together. So he's just amazing insight. I would say like a polar opposite to you. I'm not surprised you only said 3.
Yeah, I'll tell you 3 in a minute. One of them you'll enjoy. Oddly enough, I can see Cristiano Ronaldo in that.
Yeah.
Because he would be slighted if he didn't get World Player of the Year every year, and Messi got it. He would feel slighted by it. He's not being slighted.
It kills him. It's more than a slight. I'd say he's in agony.
Yeah, exactly. You think, there's only one person on the planet who would feel that. It's you, mate.
Yeah.
It's funnily enough, you're the one person that's closest to Messi, and sometimes above him. So there are some people, to get there, you kind of need that. You absolutely kind of need that. And you will invent these kind of semi-slurs. Is it not? It's quite a normal thing, the human condition. Anyone's listening, you yourself, is there anyone you've ever known in your life, be it as a kid, be it in sport, be it in your own job just now, where you think, "I don't like them"?
No.
No, but you've never met them, and you think, I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan.
Yeah.
And then you meet them and they're great. And you really, really like them. It's very common, isn't it? Well, you love everyone, obviously.
Sure.
But it's kind of common that some people, they don't, I just, not even that you hate them, you just, I don't want to you, you know, whatever. And then you meet them, they're totally and utterly different. You have to get inside your own head and understand why you're feeling that. And sometimes you need to be very, very brave to do it. Is it because you're jealous? You know, is it because they've got something that you want that you can't get? And we don't, as human beings, like to own up to that. So that's a wee bit part of it.
Often a characteristic about yourself you dislike.
Exactly. You know, so you see a slight mirror, you think, don't like that. And it's owning up to it, and obviously having the self-knowledge to have that as well. But I agree with you. You take the very, very tops of, and it's not just sport, actually. You start looking at acting and things like that. It's kind of similar. The very, very top, you'll see some very odd characters up there because they are driven in that weird way. And it's destructive to a lot of people around them a lot of the time. But some people, they seem to know that's the only way they can get there. And that's not to diss Ronaldo, what he's like, because I don't imagine Messi's the same. I've never talked to either two of them. But I don't imagine they're the same in that.
No.
So you kind of see that does exist in sports. I have to tell you, my times where I've been playing angry, total failures every time.
Really?
Total, all three.
Okay.
So I got angry because someone spat at me, Pat Nevin had. So instead of, reacting or the right way, I turned around and tried to basically half him in two with a scissor kick. And he passed the ball by the time I turned around, and I basically almost killed Trevor Stephen. So I couldn't even kick the right person. I once tried to really damage a guy called Ali Moughlan, who used to play for Leicester City. I never reached him. I ran towards him so hard, I never looked at the ground. There was a rut in the ground and my ankle went over and I damaged myself really badly. And the other time was I was playing against Liverpool for Chelsea, and it was Ronnie Whelan pulling me back as I was getting away from him. And I just turned around and thumped him. And he was in total shock.
Yeah.
But I could have got sent off there. All three occasions, remember each one of them. Lost it completely, was angry, none of them worked. And they could each have got me sent off. Idiot. So I just thought, no, control, calm. And that's what I was 99% of the time. But for some people, it doesn't. Especially destructive players. I think with destructives, that's why you talk about basketball. He's creative, isn't he? I mean, he's stunningly creative.
Yeah.
I
would have thought the anger would inhibit the creativity.
Precisely. And that's what I don't get. So being able to, square that circle, close that dichotomy, all that sort of thing, to be able to funnel and channel that sort of anger, I think that's genius. And God, I wish I had it.
Yeah. You should watch it in the documentary, because anytime he has these many moments, it then follows a montage of how he performs. And he's so angry when he's talking about how he's going to squash this guy. And then it cuts to the montage and it's graceful and wrists and flowing. And you're like, you're not playing angry, but it's amazing. Yeah, I would associate it with Roy Keane. If Roy Keane's angry, I suspect he'll have a better game than an angry Pat Nevin.
I suspect everyone listening here was feeling exactly the same thing about exactly the same name. Roy's perfect for it. He would make himself angry. Without a doubt, he would find a reason to be angry. And again, I've known people like that find a reason to be angry because they know they do better when they're angry, and the world's against them and that person's got something on me or whatever. And it's fantasy the vast majority of the time. And that's, that's fine. You've got to find your way, what's best for you. But I agree, trying to then put that inside creativity, with my brain, I can't even see how that works.
And so to round things up then, were you, did you pitch yourself as kind of calm, blank canvas, or did you even go out to enjoy yourself an extra notch? Were you happy, like laughing? There's a whole spectrum there, right down to MJ's anger.
Oh, there's great psychology there. And the psychology, I've told you, I've written a book about psychology of sport many, many years ago. And it was find the right place to what suits you. Now, most of the time, it was very blank, as in calm. Everyone's going out really upset. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be relaxed when it comes to me. I'm not going to be rushed. I'm going to see and understand and be in control of everything. You love the idea of control, especially when you're going to create. If you can then add a layer of enjoyment and fun on top of it, you all the stress will go. And if I found with creativity, if you do anything creative without stress and without fear, it flows better. So it's I don't know if that sounds complicated or simple, but for me it was very, very, very simple, and it worked. Now that's fine, and the vast majority of the time I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, but I couldn't always do it because there was sometimes something else in your mind. A million things. You could be injured, you could problems at home, there could be referees against you, the pitch is rubbish, the manager's been... A million things that can be against you to stop you being in that zen position. But that's where you wanted to be. And I could absolutely honestly say all the best games I ever played in my career, I was there. I was 100% there. And that's when it all went well. And that's what everybody does. You're trying to find that place where you got it right. Find that place again. And, find ways again. That's why... you ask a player, what do you do in the way of the game? And you drive the same way and you listen to the same tracks in the car and, they wear the same things, all that sort of stuff. They don't know why they're doing it some of the time. They're doing it to get into that place where they need to be. And you can get very American and, wee bit Californian about it if you want. But in actual fact, you just can't get your head into that area. And you have to use complex psychological words if you don't want to. You can't, but you don't need to. That's why they do all those things. You know, do you drink the same bottle of water before you go into a show every day? I don't know. It's the same cup of tea. It relaxes you and brings you to where exactly you like to be. For me, it makes it dead simple. The weird thing is, for years, nobody knew that's what they were doing. Just doing it naturally.
Yeah, discovering it themselves. Listen, great as always. We'll talk next week, Pat. Thanks a mil.
Look forward to it. Take care, everyone.
Delighted to say Miguel Delaney is with us this morning. Miguel, how are you getting on?
Not too bad.
This Premier League story has been rumbling on, and it doesn't. You know, I'm kind of very loath to compare one situation with another situation, but it certainly doesn't seem as if they have been as definitive about what they want to do as, say, La Liga, for example. But maybe that's actually the right approach. Maybe La Liga have it wrong in having one guy who seems to be leading the charge, and perhaps that's just how it's reported here. But certainly, giving the Premier League clubs the opportunity to debate things, when they do find some kind of consensus, at least everybody will have had their opinion heard.
I'm not sure. I think there's a difference in messaging for one, and maybe this comes from what the competitions are, which is also the Premier League essentially being almost a group of 20 shareholders, which creates a difficulty of its own. So I was just off a press conference call with the Premier League chief executive Richard Masters yesterday after the video conference, and a few journalists were complaining afterwards that it wasn't as direct as Tebas in Spain, who just spelled out everything they want to do. Whereas, and I suppose the issue in England, I suppose, Masters had to be a bit cagier because this is an ongoing negotiation. In saying that, I think yesterday was quite a decisive day, because on Sunday I was looking at the kind of situation. I was a bit more pessimistic about football coming back because of the split, which is basically that obviously the bottom six do not want to play neutral grounds. They're worried about how this will influence the relegation fight. They had brought a few clubs in, and of course this had led to suspicion of other clubs that they were just that it wasn't about neutral grounds, but it was all kind of a big game of chicken or a delaying exercise, because they ultimately there could be an opportunity here to stave off relegation, or those are suspicions. Everyone would maintain they want to play the league. But then yesterday morning, and it was the first announcement in the video conference, it kind of basically undercut all this when the FA, an announcement was made with the FA. There was a unanimous agreement that the season has to be finished on sporting merit, and that's either going to be through playing the remaining fixtures or some sort of formula like weighted points per game. And that has immediately kind of destroyed the kind of bottom six power block now, because they're suddenly not all unified, because now it's going to, basically, it's in the interests of some of the teams now to play the remaining fixtures no matter what, because depending on the formula, they're almost certain to go down. That's probably true. Maybe not Villa because they've got that game in hand. West Ham, on the last weighted points per game that I saw, they'd be in danger. Norwich would obviously be in danger. But it's just completely skewed the situation. Now, as a stop, the Premier League, because more than 6 clubs obviously are not totally with the idea of neutral grounds. In fact, all would prefer to play home and away, but to different degrees. The Premier League will go back to government and see if there's anything that can be done on home and away fixtures. And obviously the Bundesliga is instructive on that. Personally, I can't really see the government budging on that from everything we've heard. It could because it's all about kind of the safety concerns, not just outside the ground, but within. But now it seems that even if it was to go to neutral grounds, the majority would vote for that. And it's why I think football is looking in a better share. The Premier League, at least, it looks more likely it'll come back for mid-June than it had done last week.
The bit about the government saying we actually want you to continue with the neutral venues, there's probably quite a strong hand that the Premier League have here, in that things are going so badly for Johnson in terms of the perception of his announcement in the last 24 hours. If they get in now and say, look, come on, we can help you here, this is going to be seen as you triumphing over the return of football and bringing it back regionally, and it's kind of in keeping with your let's get everybody back to work who can go back to work if you're not taking public transport. I can see how they might be able to force that through.
Possibly. I mean, I know social media is instructive, but even when the announcement was made yesterday about sport being able to come back, the immediate response is, oh, look at this, a natural reaction to what was a shambles of messaging on Sunday evening. The one thing about that, I mean, and this has been a bit of a criticism throughout the Premier League's handling of this over the last few weeks, that for a response like that would maybe require a bit of centralised leadership, which they felt has been lacking. And there has been some talks from some clubs about how if Scudamore was still in the job, there'd be immediate consensus. Now, I think that's probably a bit unfair on Masters. He was also he wasn't around for some of the situations because he was on compassionate leave, and has only recently come back. But yeah, it certainly is a potential response for the Premier League. But I suppose there's a game, again, they're under their own pressures here, because a lot of their clubs actually do need football to come back as soon as possible. So whether camera heads will prevail in that, we'll see. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of feeling optimistic about the return of football, and let's just make sure that everybody understands that's what we're talking about here. What kind of time frame would that happen in?
So they're almost certain to go back to group training on May 18th, so that's 6 days' time, Monday. Now, there are meetings with players and staff this week, which a lot of clubs have complained should have happened much earlier. I think the Premier League will say they need to kind of iron out details of whether they actually can come back before they can go to the players. I think they will manage to assuage assure them of safety, or it's in it relatively safe environment. I know they're relying on all sorts of science for this, so should have more details of that later in the week. But then it's about almost the training being a trial period and seeing how that goes, because on the kind of press conference call with Masters yesterday, we were talking about what happens if one player gets or is tested positive for coronavirus. which is pretty much an inevitability, as we've seen from Spain and Germany. But also kind of, where testing would take place, whether players go home or are in kind of some sort of secure environment. So this would be kind of the training would almost be a trial for 3-4 weeks with the hope they want to get back to the Premier League on 12th of June. But they did say they might have to be a bit flexible over that date. That's kind of the target date, but some period of mid-June is the general idea.
I mean, it's a remarkable turnaround from where we were 2 weeks ago, really.
In terms of kind of where it didn't look like football was going to happen at all.
Yeah, and also where we still are with regards to the level of infection in the UK.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot, and even from our own perspective as journalists, the morality of reporting on, football trying to get back while all this is going on, and while deaths are still happening, and I suppose it's almost two separate things. Obviously, like as we saw in Italy from straight away, when death tolls are so high, it just feels wrong and distasteful to be playing football. But then once you go past that, I suppose there is a period of commemoration, and there has to be some sort of will to try and get back to normality. The issue then becomes about whether the situation makes playing football unsafe. And I think that is the crux of it. And I think there's a fair argument. This is going to apply to a lot of businesses. When I did a piece last week and talking about some of the latest government developments and some of the schism in the Premier League, apparently the UK government were saying that if some of the stringent measures the Premier League applied, or what some clubs in the Premier League wanted, were applied to all businesses, no one would ever return. So that's some of the thinking. Now, again, you could have your own questions of the UK government in that regard. But I suppose if football can get back safely, even within the current context, I wouldn't say it's as distasteful as people are making out, and it's about a return to normality in that sense.
It could be useful in a load of different ways, in showing a pathway, in getting, how do we begin to congregate again? Where will they experiment? Where will we learn the science about getting crowds back together again, except in situations where crowds have gathered before? So, I can see that argument, but I also understand that people are a little bit squeamish about this.
Yeah, completely. But then I suppose it's about adapting to an unprecedented situation. So one of the things I heard was one Premier League chairman in the latest round of meetings has been putting forward the idea. He realises it's too sensitive to put this out publicly at the moment. But the argument was basically that it's a bit like road safety and speed limits. That now I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just saying this is a position that was put out there in some of the discussions. That if the speed limit was high in cities, it would cause many more deaths than it does. But we lower it as a kind of it's all about compensation on either end, and it's about assessing risk. And so we're going to have to apply the same to coronavirus eventually, because as he pointed out in some of these meetings, the death tolls on the road are still higher than coronavirus, and we're going to have to apply the same rationale if it involves getting back to some sort of normality.
Miguel, what is the official stance from the Premier League if there is a Dynamo Dresden-esque situation where there is a cluster of cases within the 2-week period of the season set to restart?
So I asked Masters that yesterday. He was aware of the Dresden situation, but not fully aware of all the details. He didn't quite go into what will happen when the league resumes for this. It was more about what happens now with the training. And he said that if one player was tested positive, the player himself would have to go into quarantine, but the team wouldn't, because even in training, they're gonna go by certain social distancing laws, and then they have all their reliance from what I mean. This is me filling in the gaps now. Sure. They've been from what I've heard, they've been using studies and certain sciences about even when you're playing football in an outside environment, how long you're actually in contact with, or how long you're close to other people. Even kind of transmission through the air. So I think that at least informs some of the thinking. But in terms of what there would be what would happen with a positive case, for the moment, for the training situation, it's just that one player would go into quarantine.
Do you think we could see players playing with masks?
That hasn't been broached yet, but not that I've heard it's been broached. I'm sure it's come up. given that nearly everything has come up in these discussions, because they've been trying anything to find a solution. The message has been everything on the table. I think going from the science I've heard they're using, and even kind of Tebas alluded to this on Sunday with Spain, I don't think so, but I think managers will.
Right. And Aina Falvey is working with World Rugby at the moment. He's a former doctor with the Irish rugby team and also a former international boxer from Ireland. Very, very renowned doctor. He was talking about the study that rugby is doing at World Rugby level about what the level of contact is, and even kind of, you know, because the World Health Organization describes contact as 15 minutes in close contact inside a 2-metre radius. They were saying that they believe that on the balance of probability, even people in the scrum wouldn't actually fulfill that criteria over the course of 80 minutes. You know, I mean, obviously there would be some exceptions to that, but on balance, most players wouldn't have contact. So you can see where the science would actually give them some comfort about a very low risk of infection. And then it does become all about the player's willingness to accept a certain amount of risk and the club's willingness to put those players at risk.
I think there are a few actually interesting quandaries here. First of all, the Premier League is going to obviously, the clubs are going to have to come up with some sort of situation that allows an opt-out, given the risk. But then we get into kind of bigger questions, and it almost feels like this is an unfair pressure to put on players. But this is kind of the reality, in that even if they have safety concerns, and very obviously, very understandable, very genuine safety concerns, of course, yet the issue is that football is obviously a cash flow business. That cash flow has stopped. Which is kind of at the moment threatening kind of the economic structure of the sport, and the economic structure which involves very lucrative pay packets. Now, they're given that this could mean clubs going to administration and those pay packets actually stopped, what will that, you know, force certain players to change their thinking? And not that clubs will force them to, but the situation and the threat to a certain lifestyle. I know it's a little bit grotesque to almost think about it in those terms, but that is kind of the reality and a very genuine quandary in this. And I was talking to an agent yesterday who has a few players in the Bundesliga about this very issue, and he was kind of saying, from what we've seen, the vast majority of players want to go back, and even those that have doubts, once it comes to a situation where all their teammates are, they kind of go with it. But you would wonder, I mean, especially judging by Danny Rose's very strident comments on his Instagram last night, whether some players would just would downright refuse, and what the league will do then.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like it's going to be, do you accept the risk or not? Sign this waiver. If you sign this waiver, then suddenly you're on board. And if enough players sign a waiver, then that club is going to be grand. If there's 1 or 2 clubs that have, you know, a few refuseniks and they rally their troops behind them, it'll be fascinating to see what happens in that instance. But I think the point you make about is ultimately hurting everybody in the pocket is going to drive a lot of decisions in a lot of industries, like especially in England. You know, it's the lowest paid who are getting on the tube, who have been told to avoid it, but who have to go because they're all going to end up losing their jobs. So yeah, this is the bit of the whole scenario where everybody being on the same team begins to break down really quickly, and that's when factions happen, and it's going to be a very, very interesting couple of months for us. Miguel, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Thanks, Jerry.
It's Miguel Delaney with